The silence began on a Tuesday morning. 3 weeks since her last text. No explanation, no closure. Just the hollow echo of a conversation that ended mid-sentence, leaving you staring at your phone like a man searching for answers in the void. You replay the moments, the gradual distance, the shorter replies, the way her laughter became polite rather than genuine, the way she pulled back just when you thought you understood her rhythm, and now nothing. Radio silence. The kind that makes a man question everything he thought he knew about connection, about love, about himself. This is where most men break. They reach for their phone at 3 a.m. They craft long messages explaining their feelings. They apologize for crimes they didn't commit. They beg, they plead, they promise to change. They become smaller versions of themselves, hoping that somehow, through sheer force of desperation, they can resurrect what died quietly between them. But there is another way. A path walked by emperors and slaves alike. A rule so simple, yet so profound that it transforms not just how women see you, but how you see yourself. The Stoics called it the foundation of all virtue. The bedrock of masculine strength. Master yourself, and you master everything. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, understood this truth when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing about battle strategies or political maneuvering. He was writing about the war that matters most, the one fought within. When she pulls away, your first instinct screams for action. Send another text. Show up unannounced. Make grand gestures. Prove your worth through effort and persistence. But this is the path of the weak man. This is control seeking control. Desperation masquerading as love. The Stoic man does something different. Something that confuses her, intrigues her, and ultimately draws her back like gravity. He masters his response, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands a fundamental truth. You cannot control her actions, her feelings, or her choices. You can only control yourself. Epictetus, born a slave who became the teacher of emperors, knew this better than anyone. No one can hurt you without your permission, he taught. The woman who stopped responding didn't hurt you. Your attachment to her response hurt you. Your need for her validation wounded you. Your belief that her attention defined your worth destroyed you. The moment you truly understand this distinction, everything changes. Instead of reaching for your phone, you reach for discipline. Instead of crafting the perfect message to win her back, you craft a better version of yourself. Not for her, for you. Because a man who needs someone else's attention to feel complete is not a man at all. He is a boy in a man's body, seeking approval from a world that respects only those who approve of themselves first. This is not about playing games or manipulation. This is about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to play games because his presence speaks louder than his words ever could. The Stoics understood that true power lies not in controlling others, but in being so firmly rooted in your own purpose that external validation becomes irrelevant. So you begin the real work. Stop checking your social media, not because someone told you it was a strategy, but because you genuinely have better things to focus on. Your body becomes your temple. Your mind becomes your sanctuary. Your time becomes too valuable to waste on wondering why someone chose to walk away. You wake up earlier. You train harder. Read deeper. You build something meaningful. A business. A skill. A version of yourself that would make your younger self proud. Hours pass without thinking of her. Then days. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've remembered who you were before she became the center of your universe. Seneca wrote. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Her silence wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Away from neediness and toward self-possession. Away from seeking completion in another person and toward finding wholeness within yourself. The transformation happens quietly. Your friends notice it first. The desperation in your voice disappears. Your conversations become about your goals, your projects, your growth, not about her absence. You stop asking for advice about what you should text her because you stop wanting to text her at all, not out of bitterness, but out of genuine indifference to outcomes you cannot control. This is when something interesting happens. The very absence that once tormented you begins to work in your favor.
Ow.
She notices your silence. Not immediately. She was probably relieved at first when the messages stopped coming. But slowly, curiously, she begins to wonder. What happened to the man who used to seek her attention? Where did the desperation go? Why isn't he fighting for her anymore? Women are drawn to mystery. They're attracted to men who seem complete without them. Not because they want to be ignored, but because they want to be chosen by someone who has other options. Someone whose life is so full and purposeful that adding them to it would be a gift, not a necessity. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, Marcus Aurelius observed. The best response to someone pulling away is not to chase, not to fight, not to prove your worth through persistence. The best response is to become so entirely self-possessed that their absence becomes irrelevant to your happiness. You discover something profound in this process. You don't actually miss her as much as you thought you did. You miss the idea of her. You miss the validation her attention provided. You miss feeling chosen. But when you start choosing yourself, when you start providing your own validation, when you start feeling complete without external confirmation, the longing fades. Doesn't mean you become cold or emotionless. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were emotionally intelligent. They felt deeply, but acted rationally. They understood that emotions are information, not instructions. Sadness tells you something mattered. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed. But neither emotion gets to dictate your behavior. So when she finally reaches out, and she likely will, you respond from a place of strength rather than scarcity. You're not the same man who was waiting by his phone. You're not the same man who needed her response to feel worthy. You become someone else entirely, a man who values himself enough to walk away from anyone who doesn't value him. Your response is calm, measured, unbothered. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you genuinely are hard to get. Your time has become valuable. Your attention has become selective. Your energy has become focused on things that actually matter. She senses this immediately. The neediness is gone. The desperation has disappeared. In its place is something far more attractive. A man who knows his worth and requires no external validation to confirm it. A man who would be fine whether she stays or goes. A man who has mastered the one thing that makes all other mastery possible: himself. This is the paradox of attraction. The less you need someone, the more they want to be needed by you. The more complete you become alone, the more appealing you become to others. The more you master your own emotions, the more magnetic you become to those who haven't learned this discipline. But here's the most important part. By the time she comes back, you might not want her anymore, and that's exactly as it should be. You didn't do this work to win her back. You did this work to win yourself back. You didn't become disciplined to attract her attention. You became disciplined to deserve your own respect. The Stoic man doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't explain himself to those who have already decided not to understand him. He simply becomes so entirely himself that the right people are drawn to that authenticity, like light to darkness. When you master yourself, your emotions, your reactions, your need for external validation, you don't just become attractive to the woman who left. You become attractive to yourself. And that, according to every Stoic philosopher who ever lived, is the only attraction that truly matters. The silence that once tormented you becomes your greatest teacher. The space that felt empty becomes full of possibility. The woman who walked away becomes the catalyst for the man you were always meant to become. Master yourself. Everything else is just noise.